One.
How's it going, sports fans? Welcome back to FNN Sports Take with me, Kasey Hudson. Happy Friday, everyone, even if it doesn't feel like a Friday to you, because every day kind of feels like weekend-ish. But it is Friday for those of you who are getting lost in the days of the week, and it should be a happy Friday, so I hope you guys are enjoying it. We are going to kick off with some NFL news. Unfortunately, the Broncos announced yesterday that Von Miller has been diagnosed with the coronavirus. It's extremely unfortunate. They mentioned and they released a statement yesterday saying that Von Miller actually wants to be very public about his diagnosis and his fight against COVID-19 because this affects everybody and he wants everyone to take that seriously. As for how he's doing, they said that he is doing well. He is at home self-isolating and just doing his best to recover as soon as possible. So our thoughts and prayers go out to Von Miller, hoping that he gains a speedy recovery. Miller took to his Instagram story earlier today to just let everybody know, thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. He's actually doing, quite well. He's going to fight through this. And then he just asked, everyone to take this seriously. He said that this is definitely for real. So, for some of us, if you're not very directly, affected, or if something is just very distant to you, it's just kind of hard to put your compassion there. But Von Miller's overall message is the fact that we don't know who could be touched by this. So, just continue to just be precautious and keep an open mind and just, be as safe and secure as possible. And other NFL news, we are 6 days away from the 2020 NFL Draft. Now, of course, anything exciting comes with controversy and discussion and negotiations and all of the above. Now, the controversy taking place for a couple weeks now is revolving around top prospect quarterback Tua. A lot of people have actually spoken out in the past couple of days to say, okay, enough is enough. We're not going to sit here and continue to underestimate a top QB prospect because he's gone through multiple surgeries and he's recovering from multiple injuries. The bottom line is that, the medical world and science nowadays is so advanced. We've seen so many players bounce back from all kinds of injuries and either been better than they were before, or, came back to their normal skill set. So, in other words, a lot of people are saying, let's cease and desist on the hype. And at the end of the day, we've seen Tua do some amazing things on the field. We've seen him be a top prospect quarterback, which is why he is amongst the conversations now for being, top 10 in the NFL draft. Now, they're saying that it would be a huge mistake for the Washington Redskins to not snatch Tua at number 2, because we know Justin Burrow is going number 1 in the draft. That's, pretty nailed in there. But they're saying that the Redskins should actually snatch him at number 2, and it'd be a huge mistake if they didn't. But in most mock drafts, we see that Washington is probably going to go with a defensive end. It's kind of what their immediate need is at the moment. There's 2 other quarterbacks that have been talked about going before Tua as well. In talks of it, it's been Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert as well as Utah State Jordan Love. To put some things in perspective for you guys, just to kind of look at why there's just so much controversy taking place surrounding Tua, is the fact that Justin Herbert from Oregon threw for roughly 3,471 yards. He had 32 touchdowns and roughly 6 interceptions. Jordan Love over at Utah State threw for 3,402 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. Not too fantastic, but it's college, we'll let some things fly. Now, Tua, his collegiate career ended shortly on November 16th, but before his collegiate career ended, he threw for 2,840 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. So 1 more touchdown and 3 less interceptions than Justin Herbert, who's getting more credit than him right now in the draft and is, quote unquote, looking to come off the board before Tua. So when you line up those statistics and you think about how many more games Tua would have potentially had left and where his statistics would have, reached and what other accolades he could have potentially had, you really have to take a minute to sit back and think, okay, injuries and everything aside, say he is fully healed and he's ready to go. Where does he belong? With that being said, let us know who is your favorite / top quarterback of the 2020 NFL draft and why. Everybody has their reasons, whether they like that, pro-style stand-up quarterback in the pocket, or they like somebody who can use their feet. Now, in talks of a Burrow versus a Tua, as well as Tua versus Herbert, Tua, as of again, November 16th, threw for 2,840 yards. Mind you, he is not afraid to use his feet. He is a very mobile quarterback. So 33 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, collegiate career ends early, and he can utilize his feet. Let us know your thoughts on who your quarterback of the NFL draft of 2020 is. Now, there's of course a lot of conversation taking place as to what teams should trade up and why they should trade up. We're 6 days away from the draft. A lot of heat is taking place right now as to what's really going to go down on those days. They're saying that the Chargers should jump up to try to snag a quarterback. They're obviously one of the top teams in need of a quarterback, but realistically, they come in at the number 6 pick. Is it really worth trading up to try to get one of those top 3 quarterbacks when the 5 picks ahead of them, maybe 2 of those teams are looking for a QB? So I don't know what you guys' thoughts may be, but personally, I think they can hang out at 6 and still snag a solid QB depending on what their goal is and what style quarterback they're looking for. Again, Joe Burrow is more likely heading off to the Bengals. And other QB conversation, we know that Gardner for the Jaguars, he stepped up this season and, had a heck of a season. People were not expecting him to be the quarterback that he was, but he pulled it off and he pulled the entire Duval County fan base behind him. I'm pretty sure most people would be confident and comfortable to see Gardner back on that field as their QB1. But his teammate has another opinion. Correspondents over at the Jaguars have said they're not looking at any quarterbacks in this draft nor in free agency. But running back Leonard Fournette said that they should be looking at a quarterback, one in particular. He says that they need to bring Cam Newton to Duval County to compete with Gardner for the QB1 position. Now, let's be realistic. We've seen the skill set of Cam Newton, regardless of his injuries, unfortunately, and it really came down to the injuries, the head coaching position, as to why his career now, closed with the Panthers. He's not the kind of quarterback, in my personal opinion, that needs to come down and compete with a Gardner at the Jaguars to swap in and out at the Jaguars QB1 position. He's looking to come in and finish his career at a QB1 high note, not competing with somebody like Gardner. Now, as for other conversation as to where Cam Newton can end up, it still looks like he will be staying on the East Coast, a little north. There's conversations taking place about him potentially being a solid fit for the Steelers. Now, I'm kind of on board with that because realistically, Big Ben is on the tail end of his career. We've seen him battle a lot of injuries in the past couple of years, and realistically, he's only got so much time left, regardless of his accolades and the quarterback that he has been throughout his career. But also, can you see Cam Newton coming in and competing with a Mason Rudolph? Is that realistic? Rudolph had some good games, but there's definitely some things that we know that he will be focusing on in the offseason to be an even better quarterback. But in my book right now, he's not particularly full-on QB1 ready. So it would be interesting to see Cam Newton go to the Steelers, but I still don't think that anyone's talking about the perfect fit for a Cam Newton just yet. So we'll kind of put a pause on that one to see if any better conversations come up of a better fit for a quarterback like Cam Newton. Because again, he's extremely skillful, but it's just, he's battled injuries and it takes the right coach and the right system for anybody to produce. Now, more quarterback talk. Aside from the quarantine rager rumors and conversations revolving Cowboys Dak Prescott, putting all that aside, there has actually been some unresolved issues with Prescott's contract negotiations. The Cowboys put an exclusive franchise tag on Prescott for the 2020 season, but there are still unresolved negotiations. And as of now, Prescott will not be participating in the, can you believe we're saying this, virtual off-season program. I'm really intrigued to see what this virtual program is going to look like. It's so weird to think that we're talking about skills and such physicalities being displayed on a virtual, being honed and crafted on a virtual level. It's interesting. But all in all, Prescott will not be at this moment participating in virtual off-season program, OTAs. So hopefully they can get their agreements made and finalized so that we can just move on when it comes to the Prescott situation and the Cowboys, because they have a lot of other things to focus on other than Prescott. It's time for them to be America's team again. Now, in local news, people are hoping, thinking, and talking about the fact that the Bucs could trade up to snag one of the top offensive tackles in the draft. Okay, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about above with the Chargers at the number 6 pick, trading up to snag one of the top QB1s. Could it be a smart move for the Bucs? let's put it in this perspective. They're the 14th pick of the NFL draft, and they are in need of a very, very, very good offensive tackle. Realistically, they have 13 picks ahead of them. 3 of those 13 picks ahead are looking for quarterbacks. They need a quarterback. 5 of those 13 picks are looking for defensive players, and only roughly potentially 4 of those 13 picks would be competing for a tackle. So if you think about it, is it really necessary to trade up to reset or, lose leverage somewhere else down the line in the draft to grab that top offensive tackle when, you've probably got about 5 solid offensive tackles that have been talked about amongst the top 10 guys to go in the NFL draft. And of names that have been kicked around for the Bucs have been Becton as well as Andrew Thomas. So realistically, is it necessary to trade up? No. From the numbers that I just mentioned, I'm sure that they can still get a top-rated guy at the 14th pick. And again, you never know what's going to take place ahead of you, what other trades or bounce arounds will take place. That is the exciting part of the draft. Now, in other Bucs news, we have Chris Godwin. He had his press conference call yesterday to talk all things Tom Brady and offseason. And of course, Godwin was kind of saying this is a super weird time. Once the draft wraps up, then it's immediately heading into OTAs. And that's such a major time for teams because you've got a lot of bonding taking place. This is the time for people to really see, who's a real fit for this team, what personalities fit on this team off the field, who's going to step up in certain situations, who's going to get the playbook better, who's just a skilled player on the field better. So many different moving parts during this time of the year. So it's so strange that people cannot come together and get those practices in, get those face-to-face meetings and workouts. So, Godwin kind of just spoke on that during his press conference call saying, right now that they would be getting together as teammates and friends and working out, motivating each other, getting hype on top of getting their daily routines established and down packed heading into summer OTAs, bringing in the rookies, mingling the vets with the rookies, and so on and so forth. So he definitely just kept emphasizing the fact that this is a weird time, but everybody's just going to do their best to make the most of it and, do what they can to still kind of build the chemistry, build those relationships at a distance. Now, he got a lot of questions about Tom Brady. In other words, are you guys BFFs yet and braiding each other's hair? And he kind of had to tell everyone, chill out. First of all, Brady's going to come to Tampa and get situated with his family. He's also been getting acclimated to the lack of privacy between, his fortress in Massachusetts versus the open backyard to Davis Island in Tampa Bay where people can just drive up and say, hey. So while Tom Brady is getting acclimated, I'm sure that, everyone's keeping in touch, but it's not the huge hurrah that everybody tried to make it yesterday on the phone call. So he kind of told everyone, calm down. We've talked a few times, but more so in their conversations, they've just wanted to get personal fast because they don't want their first face-to-face meeting to be getting familiar with one another and trying to play catch-up. So right now it's just really getting to know each other on a very personal level. He also mentioned on the call that Tom Brady is that guy where he's not just your quarterback. He's not just your leader. Like, he builds genuine relationships with his teammates. He cares. So that's their focus right now, but they still have only talked a handful of times. And as you guys probably know by now, a few of those first conversations were just, hey, can I get that number 12? And what number are you going to wear if you give me number 12? And as we saw, Brady will be TB12 here and Godwin will be rocking 14 on the field. So we'll see how that relationship continues to build. They've got plenty of time, especially at a distance. You've got nothing better to do than Zoom phone calls, text messages, and FaceTime. I mean, I'm sure that they'll build that amazing relationship here soon enough. As for other Tampa teams, our Tampa Bay Lightning, they just re-signed Daniel Walcott to a 1-year, 2-way contract to the Syracuse Crunch. We've seen, obviously, throughout the season that the Lightning pull pretty rapidly from the Syracuse Crunch, depending on what's going on with the game, who they're facing, how many injuries they've got taking place on their immediate roster. We see them fly these guys in. They play 1 game, they play 2 games, they play 10 games, and then they're back to Syracuse. So congrats to Walcott for getting that extension. Now, if you don't follow left wing Alex Killorn for the Tampa Bay Lightning on Instagram, do yourself a favor. Go follow him now. If you know anything about most athletes, or I can't say most, a lot of athletes, they're not particularly the social media gurus or social media obsessies. So if you know anything about Alex Killorn, he's not particularly a big social media guy. And he's actually said that a lot in any stories that he's posted on his Instagram. He's quite sarcastic about it. So he decided during his quarantine downtime that he wanted to become an Instagram influencer. His words, not mine. And his first little influencer segment was about a plant he's growing in his house and what to name it. And then I'm sure he had some help, but then his creative juices took off because then he came up with something called Doc Talk. Doc Talk for Alex Killorn is when he hops on his jet ski and rides around Davis Island, stops at a few teammates' house, some randos' houses, and interviews them and leaves some prizes between anywhere from toilet paper to signed killer cards is what he hands off as prizes to his teammates. So we got a chance to see him interview Stamkos and Hedman, and look, it was nothing short of entertaining. First of all, he was riding through super choppy water and holding the phone, face to face, FaceTiming with these people, reading comments while riding through choppy water, and then just scrolling through random's backyard as well as teammates. So it was super funny. The wit was there, the humor was there, and it was super entertaining. And in the past couple of days, he has dropped some hints that there could be an episode number 2. I'm sure everybody who caught episode number 1 has commented and messaged him begging for an episode number 2. And let's be serious, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a Doc Talk epi 2. So make sure you head over and follow Killorn on Instagram so you can be a part of that entertaining experience. As for other NHL news, they are continuing to just pause their season. Most feedback that we've gotten back in general is the fact that they want to play out this season. They want to pick up where they left off and, wrap everything up. So they only had a couple more games in the regular season. Regular season was going to end on April 4th, and playoffs was supposed to start April 8th, I believe. So realistically, they just had a few more regular season games to wrap up before playoffs. And then we mentioned on Monday, Coach Cooper said, when you go into playoffs, it's like a sprint, so these guys have to be ready. So obviously any season that starts back up, once things get more under control, it will start with a mini camp. These guys are working out at home, but it's way different than being on the ice. You got to think about all the aspects that go into hockey. So there will definitely be, like basketball, a mini camp, but they plan to just pick up where they left off. And there's still talks between teams on delaying the 2020 to 2021 season and having it start in November so that they can fully wrap up the 2019 to 2020 season. As for what the players are doing in the meantime, they are sticking to this hashtag hockey at home, which is virtual workouts with their significant others. You see these girls whipping these guys into shape or keeping up. They also had another really interesting thing take place on social media where you see the hockey girlfriends climbing on the hockey players like they're a jungle gym. It was really, really sick to see. I'm not going to lie. I don't think I would be able to do it. I think I'd fall or we'd all fall down. So hats off to the girls who have made it through their jungle gym boyfriends. Aside from the virtual workouts, you see the guys setting up nets, making sure that they're keeping their shots on point. And every hockey player apparently has not owned a pair of rollerblades because most of these guys have just purchased their first set of rollerblades. So if you catch them riding around outside, they're just trying to keep their skating intact. Again, a lot of things take place. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to hockey and a lot of athleticism, obviously. So it's super fun to watch and keep up to date with. Now, Wednesday, we talked about the fact that WWE was considered an essential service. On that note, SmackDown will be taking place per usual tonight, but some of the big news on Wednesday that we announced that as of 3:30, they had made over 300 on-screen talent cuts. So within those cuts, a lot of those wrestlers took to Twitter to say their goodbye, but sources said that after talking to Vince McMahon about, all these goodbyes, what does that really mean for WWE? McMahon just made a statement to say, look, they're in a very unpredictable situation right now, and they kind of just had to do what they had to do because of the COVID-19 crisis. So some of these, if not a lot of these goodbyes, are not forever goodbyes. They're just temporary to adhere to the situation that they are currently facing. So once everything kind of settles down more with COVID-19, we might see a lot of these faces back in WWE. But with the cuts that they have made, the WWE is now saving $3 million a month and $110 million from putting a pause on the new building phase up in Connecticut. So they're saving a lot of money. I mean, as we discussed on Monday and Wednesday, a lot of sports franchises and clubs, they're taking massive financial hits here. You have to think of how these people thrive from televised money coming in from audience and fan money coming in. A huge portion of people's income, salaries, and wages are just being, minimized, cut, or completely stalled. So that's what the WWE had to do in the interim. And if you think about it, when everything took place with COVID-19 and the fact that, the sports world came to a complete halt, they didn't pause the XFL season. And the XFL is obviously ran and funded by the WWE. They didn't pause it to reevaluate later like every other team did. They just straight up canceled the season. And these guys had 5 games left of their first season ever. So to see that was the initial move they made, you could see that they tried to save money off the bat in the beginning, and they did it with, their newest franchise, their newest situation. So it's not shocking to see what the WWE had to do. Now, it is still a little weird to think that SmackDown's taking place, because a lot of physical contact goes into wrestling. And then there's other sports or individual situations that have been halted because of COVID-19. So, but again, it's deemed an essential service. So hats off to the WWE for that. In the meantime, wrestlers could actually be in conversation with another wrestling company called AEW. If you guys have seen Brandi Rhodes and her husband Cody Rhodes, who was actually a former WWE pro wrestler, they started a company that has taken off magnificently, especially in the past year, but the company has been up for about 3 years now. But this fall was the huge debut of AEW Dynamic over at TNT. So they're still going, and it looks like they're going to sign a few of these WWE guys that got released on Wednesday. So good luck to them in continuation of their career, and, best of luck with AEW. Hopefully that all works out. Now, we know that during quarantine, games are non-existent right now. There's nothing really new in terms of attending events or events to look forward to. We know that Dana White tried to make UFC 249 continue regardless of what was going on with COVID-19, and that was going to take off tomorrow night, actually. And he was on ESPN last week saying that it's happening. Nothing's stopping this because fans are going stir crazy. They need something to look forward to. They need entertainment. That's kind of everybody's answer for why the stay at home and quarantine needs to end, because people are going stir crazy. I'm a huge advocate for protecting your mental health, but you have to be realistic to the fact of being safe. So with that being said, he thought that his safety precautions were enough to just make an undisclosed location and still, have everybody tested and still bring people together to have UFC take off. But ESPN decided that they will not be participating in airing that, so they actually had to shut down UFC 249. With other things that need to be shut down, again, SmackDown's still taking off per usual, but during quarantine, we have got nothing else going on but replays, reruns of finals and playoffs and championships and tournaments. So since we're in replay mode, all of us over here at FNN want to know, what is your most memorable game? Leave a comment below. Let us know what's your most memorable game, whether you watched it on TV, whether you attended it in person. What is the most memorable game and why? I could tell you mine. People laugh when I say this, but I can tell you mine. It is September 17th of 2011. It was Oklahoma football versus FSU football at FSU. It was the first time that I have ever learned about a college game day or who or what an Erin Andrews was. And my friends woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning to learn about college game day and Erin Andrews. And it changed my life forever, because before that game, I was going to school for something else. And then after that game, that atmosphere, that energy, I just couldn't get enough of it. So I went back to school, I changed my major, and that is actually how I got into sports broadcasting. So, it's one of the most memorable games that I've ever attended. I'm pretty sure they kept letting students in after capacity, because there was literally no space to even stand in the stadium, and it was such a neck and neck game. Nobody had voices after the game. It was insane. I can't even try to explain that atmosphere and those feelings and those emotions, but it's a game that'll stick with me forever. So let us know what your most memorable game is and why. Comment below. We want to know these things, especially while we're rehashing and reliving, some memorable things. As we wrap up, we just want to take another minute and give another shout out to our Tampa teams for their donations to the emergency grant program, One Tampa Relief Now Fund. This was created to provide financial relief to eligible small businesses, families, and individuals who have been heavily impacted by COVID-19. So to participate in donating, please head over to www.tampa tampagov.net/relief-now. We are all in tough situations, but anything that any of us can do, obviously, is a massive help. Again, guys, we are separated, we are isolated, but we are all in this together. And the bottom line is just kindness and loving everybody and just being open-minded and compassionate as we all do our best to just get through COVID-19 and this whole crazy situation. So again, it's Friday. I don't know how to enjoy a quarantine Friday night. Maybe you have your wine if you haven't had it all week, or you do something a little different to make it feel like a Friday. But I hope you guys enjoy your Friday night. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, stay smart, and we will see you guys Monday back here with FNN Sports Take with me, Kasey Hudson.